do you not believe words are harmful, can be harmful? Do you think there's sort of a distinct category difference in the kind of harm that can be caused by words that can be caused by action?
Absolutely. There is a distinct category difference between physical violence and words that are hurtful. You cannot reduce the impact of physical violence. If I smash you in the head with a brick, there is no way for you to be less affected by that because the impact is physical. Words are subjective. Your experience in relation to words that people say to you are subjective. There are things that people can say to me that I would find very hurtful, but you might not at all. And equally, there are things that you might say to me today that I wouldn't find hurtful, but before I did a huge amount of personal growth and personal development and worked on my psyche, which I think is very important, that I would have found very difficult. So the problem with the idea that words are harmful is it introduces the subjective element of it, which is if I say something to you that you find offensive, well, you don't know that what my intentions were with that. You don't know. We don't know how much of the harm that's caused is caused by your interpretation of what I said. If I hit you in the head with a brick, we know that the damage is done by the fact that I physically did that. So that's the difference.
Of course, I mean, we recognize that there would be some instances in which certain forms of words would be more harmful than certain forms of physical action. Mm-hmm. I could sort of flick you in the side of the head and that would probably hurt maybe a little bit, but it might not hurt as much as, my mum telling me that she's disappointed in me or something. So there's of course a subjectivity, but it doesn't seem obvious to me that there's this category distinction to make that physical harm is always worse. And I wonder, is there a sort of moral question that can be raised here? Unless we believe in a soul, unless we're religious, if we're materialists and we think that the mind is just the brain, then to speak of psychological harm and physical harm is really to speak of the same thing, because the mind is just something physical. It's just processes going on in your mind that say, I don't like this. And of course, there's an intuitive difference between the kind of hurt that you feel from words and the kind of hurt that you feel from being hit in the arm or something. But ultimately, it's the same kind of thing going on, which is the brain reacting to stimuli and saying, I don't like this. If it's the case that my freedom to swing my fist ends at your nose just because of the physical harm that that's going to bring you about, why doesn't my freedom to swing my language end at your ears, given that it can bring about just as physical harm within your mind? Like, what is the sort of moral difference here?
You're very clever, Alex, but I shouldn't have phrased it that way. You are very clever, and there's no but. I think we all instinctively understand the difference between physical violence and the impact of communication that's non-physical. You cannot protect yourself from me punching you in the face if I'm within the distance where I can do that, right? And you cannot, unless you take painkillers in advance of me punching you in the face, you cannot have that experience be any different. Whereas words, while they can be hurtful, one of the most important things for a human being, for me, is to learn to process words without having an instinctive emotional reaction that is harmful to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an analogy that can be pushed because, of course, there are people who sort of condition their shins so that they can be whacked a bunch of times and it just doesn't hurt. I mean, for me, I think that maybe the distinction lies in the utility of restricting it. I don't know about your views on this, but people who are pro-free speech activists, however you want to describe them, I think are often caricatured, although maybe some think this, as saying that if we allow people to say what they want, when they want, with no restriction, we'll live in some kind of utopia where disinformation disappears and everybody gets to the truth and reason prevails. I think that's facile. That's a ridiculous idea. Of course, there's still going to be disinformation. Of course, people are going to be getting hurt and insulted, and there's going to be libel and slander. My position is just that is to trip over myself to recognize that yes, free speech comes at a cost. That's why it's so valuable. But if it was just this wonderful thing that brought about obvious benefits, then everybody would be trivially in favor of it. It has to come at some cost, and the cost is that it is going to cause this harm. But that restricting freedom of speech, at least, excessively, is almost always going to be worse in a way that maybe physical harm isn't. You can say, yes, physical harm is really bad, but I don't think you can say similarly something like restricting physical harm will end up being worse, unless you worry that the government's going to overstep.
And that's where we come back to the fact that we all instinctively understand the difference between the harm that words do and the harm that physical actions do. That's why we don't ever have the conversation of, well, maybe we should allow people to punch each other, because that would, there is trade-offs with that we really want. I think that's also the difference as well. It's like you have to regulate physical violence. You don't necessarily have to regulate language in the same way, because, as you say, the negative trade-offs are very, very bad. If you look at societies that restrict people heavily in terms of the comedy, the satire, their ability to express and share and debate ideas, those are generally not the societies that anybody watching or listening to this would want to live in. And
yes.
That's a kind of parallel. So I'm not someone who philosophizes too much about these things. I think there's a lot of wisdom in empiricism and observing what is true across different societies, and that's kind of one of the things I'm talking about in the book, which
yes.
you're holding up,
which is I haven't waved around yet.
This wasn't an attempt to plug it. I'm just trying to say that my attitude to many things is not based. I don't have as much faith in philosophy as I think a lot of people do. I'm interested in what works and what doesn't work. And my opposition to restrictions of speech is not based on some deeply worked out philosophical concept. It's just, I observe that societies that allow people to speak freely are better than societies that don't.
Did you enjoy that clip? You must have done at least a little bit, because you made it to the end. Well, guess what? There's more. The full conversation that clip that you just watched was taken from is available by clicking the link that just appeared on your screen. Or click just below it to watch more clips from the Within Reason podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and the Clips channel as well. And if you haven't already, find us on iTunes and Spotify for the audio-only versions. It's far too much information. Most of you have gone already. If you haven't, thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you in the next one.